In today.
Cold, wintry days like today always get Canadians thinking about or maybe dreaming about going south. And in recent years, Mexico has become one of our favorite destinations. Close to 1.3 million of us visited Mexico in 2009. But lately, there have been a number of reports of violence in Mexico, gang violence, drug violence, tourists being injured and even killed. Just this week, a Canadian woman says she was sexually assaulted by Mexican police officers. So you may be wondering, is it safe to go to Mexico? Well, Bill Murray is a professor of tourism at Mount St. Vincent University, and he is with us here tonight to talk about that subject. You know, Bill, travel agents and the Mexican government are downplaying the danger because, of course, they're trying to encourage tourism. So let me ask you, from your perspective, how safe, how dangerous is Mexico?
I think from a real perspective versus a mental perspective, we have two different issues here. From a real perspective, Mexico is as safe as it has been. We have a lot of incidents that are happening in the media right now that are gaining a lot of attention, and tragic incidents that we have to take note of and not minimize through that. But the perceptual issue is that more Canadians are traveling down to Mexico than ever before, and the percentage of incidents are so small that we're getting a kind of a disproportionate play from it.
Are you saying this is more of a public relations problem than a safety problem?
I'm saying that it is a public relations problem for Mexico, and for Canadians that want a nice warm destination. I'm not downplaying the fact that there are serious issues in Mexico and specific regions that are more dangerous than others.
Well, let's talk about that. Okay. Mexico, like Canada, is a large country. To be honest, most of us don't know the regions of Mexico very well. How safe are those places where Canadians typically go?
Canadians typically go, if you look at the statistics from just last year at the WTTC, or the World Trade and Travel Commission, we know that 928 million approximately last year Canadians traveled down.
928,000.
928,000, thank you. Approximately 500,000 of those went down to the Cancun beach area. So you're looking at over on the Gulf side in the Yucatan Peninsula area. The dangerous areas that the reports are coming out, including our own government is putting out travel advisories, are for the northern regions that are very close to the U.S. border, where a lot of the drug cartels are doing some of their work that we know about through facts, and that there's some dangerous regions are.
The Foreign Ministry is advising Canadians to use, quote, a high degree of caution while traveling in Mexico. Now, there are similar advisories for other southern destinations. Absolutely. So let's be clear. What characterizes a high degree of caution when traveling?
A high degree of caution is to simply be aware of and do the research before you go down to a region. So if I were a U.S. citizen or a Canadian citizen driving across the border from, let's say, California down into Tijuana, I would want to be extremely alert over my environment, over what is happening around me, what kind of vehicle I'm driving.
In fact, we're advised not to do that.
We're advised not to do that. In fact, one of the biggest advisories is road travel from the U.S. into Mexico, where the most dangerous are. If you're flying down to one of the many resorts down in Mexico, you would take the same precautions as you would if you were traveling to another destination, let's say Jamaica or Barbados, or if you were traveling to a large city in Canada. Anecdotally, I was speaking to people today about the Mexican issue, and people who have traveled very well. And they said that the biggest problem that they've run into in their years of travel is when they were mugged in Halifax.
So what would be your advice for people who are considering a trip to Mexico?
If you were considering a trip to Mexico, I'd do three things. First of all, I'd do your research before you go. Find out where your embassy is, read the advisories, talk to a qualified travel agent about the safe regions to go and how to be safe. So do your research ahead of time. Second of all, travel safe just like you normally would. If you're a novice traveler, travel with people, stay on the resorts, and go to the tourist areas that your hotel or travel agent recommends. Travel in groups. Don't be flashy. And like a lot of tourists, sometimes we do things on vacation that we wouldn't do when we're at home.
You're talking about misbehaving.
I'm talking
too much
perhaps
booze, too much
misbehaving.
Partying, late
That's
nights
right.
And so on,
So if you wander off a resort into a local area and you consume too much alcohol, then there might be some issues that happen. So what I'm saying at is not don't have fun, but to use your head when you're traveling so that you stay safe. And the third thing is to remember that random acts of violence do happen. So if you travel to the northern parts of Mexico across the border, the randomness becomes much less. But in these tourist resort areas, although tourists can be targeted, a lot of these incidents are random.
You'd be willing to take a trip to Mexico?
Absolutely.
All right. Appreciate your time.
My pleasure.
Bill Murray, Professor of Tourism, Mount St. Vincent University. Back with more in just a moment.